The best bet of the night for me is Joel Embiid over 32.5 points. Usually you're getting 33.5. Feels like Joel Embiid might be the closest player in the NBA to paying attention to what his point prop is, because he won't leave the game for the night until he's hit it. He just won't.
Yeah.
Even if it's 34.5, 35.5, you're like, okay, this is going to be tough. Joel Embiid's only going to play 3 quarters tonight. And it's like 2 minutes into the fourth quarter, he hits his prop, raises his hand, they sit his ass down. So I actually got a 50% odds boost on that number by itself. So I got Joel Embiid plus 120 just for over 32.5 points.
Like the Clippers more than I have in a long time. I mean, they're sitting at 52.5. I mean, you look at a team right now, they're 13th in strength of schedule. So it's kind of right in the middle of the pack in terms of what they're going to look at the rest of the way. But, right, James Harden made the most sense going to the Clippers. We talked about it all summer when there were rumors out there about James Harden wanting out. And as the long, drawn-out process was there for James Harden and where is he going to go, we looked around the league and said, like, the only place that does truly make sense is the Clippers. It looked really bad at first, but sometimes when you're adding in one star to 2 other stars that have barely played together because they've been hurt the entire time, it takes a little bit for that thing to click, right? I mean, just even short term, they've won 8 of their last 10 games. They're the 4th seed in the Western Conference. They're 26-14. And when you have a healthy Kawhi Leonard and a healthy Paul George, you're already one of the better teams in the Western Conference. Now you're adding James Harden, who accepts the role of being that point guard, being a little more of a facilitator that can also go out and score the basketball. We obviously know what he did when he was in Houston in his prime. Clippers, like, I don't laugh at the Clippers anymore. It was a while where I did. But again, we talked about this, Ryan, right? Like I said, hey, if the Clippers are actually healthy, if you get Kawhi out there consistently and in the playoffs, this is a really good team. They went to the Western Conference Finals when Kawhi was actually healthy for them.
When I read Nick Nurse's book, he talked about how he wanted to take Joel Embiid out of the game by utilizing and like exploiting how emotional Joel Embiid can be. And the fact that Nick Nurse knew that about Joel Embiid and knew that that was a vulnerability of his, feels like maybe when he became his coach, he helped him work on it and fix it. And then to your point, Nick, about the roster, it's almost a perfect roster right now in terms of the role players that you have. DeAnthony Melton, who's not a household name, he's been really good. I bet you they bring him back. Tobias Harris is in a completely new role. He's averaging over 22 points per game, being able to rebound the basketball in a new capacity. Tyrese Maxey obviously takes another step, but to me, and I know this sounds crazy, but and I just watched him have a quick little Euro step layup. Kelly Oubre has been awesome for this team. He's defending like a demon, playing his role perfectly, and making a veteran minimum. He is exactly the kind of player that the Sixers needed. I bet you, though, that they trade someone like Marcus Morris and maybe a pick and a young player for another guy who's a difference maker to send them over the top. I do believe that this is the best team in the East.
Everybody loves Dan Campbell. They're a feel-good story. Everybody wants Detroit. But what if Tampa Bay just does win this game? I mean, Mike Evans, I think he's got a great matchup going against Cam Sutton. There's nobody, in that secondary for Detroit that's over 5'11". And usually if Mike Evans has a stinker, he bounces back the next week. I think Baker Mayfield's going to have a good game. I know they only scored 6 points in this matchup a couple weeks ago against Detroit, but if I had to pick, somebody to pull off the upset, it would probably be Tampa Bay, because I don't think Green Bay is going to be able to beat San Francisco. And it's hard to make the case for the Texans on the road and CJ Stroud's first road start in the playoffs against this Ravens defense. So as crazy as it sounds, or it would have sounded, I guess, when we were in August previewing the season, I think it could be Tampa Bay.
I'd be surprised. I've been making the case for Detroit. I just think that their defense is so bad, their passing defense. You feel like San Francisco is going to hang like 45 points on them. And it's kind of going to be tough for them to keep up with that, especially on the road with Jared Goff outside, even though the weather there is pretty good, like this time of year. So, yeah, I'd be pretty surprised if it was anyone but San Francisco, although I am crossing my fingers that maybe Green Bay ends up upsetting San Francisco and we get the Lions with an easier matchup to go to the Super Bowl.
It's funny, Nick, because you and everybody, it sounds like, keeps talking about what the Chiefs don't have all of a sudden and what they have to face going on the road in the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes for the first time. And I keep thinking, what am I missing here? Doesn't he have the best defense, talking about Patrick Mahomes, that he's ever played with? Doesn't he have the best running back in Isaiah Pacheco? You mentioned, their wide receiver core has been questionable, but Rashee Rice is the guy. You talk about good, young, solid, proven wide receivers in the NFL. He's the best young wide receiver this team's had since Tyreek Hill. So it's not like the Chiefs don't have weapons, right? They're just doing it in a different way. Can they put up a 40 spot, right? Can they score 50 and just outscore a team? I don't know, man. I don't know if they're that team, but I'll tell you this. Their defense is good enough. It's taken me a while to come around. I thought, beginning of the season, they're just overachieving. Midway through the season, at some point, they're going to fall off. And then like a month and a half ago, I went, all right, this defense is legit. And they have been since. They have been in the playoffs. And I think they'll continue to be. So you're right, man. The offense isn't what we've gotten used to. But this team can beat you in different ways.
When I was putting down my three favorite win totals on the board, two of those three overs were Minnesota and OKC. Both of them are lower win totals than the double of what they have now. But more importantly, you're getting plus money for Minnesota over for a 60, and they're on pace for a 60-win season. I don't see this team slowing down. Why? Because they have the third easiest schedule left in the rest of the year. They're really dominant at home, and they're doing it by their defense. So I like Minnesota quite a bit. I would not be shocked if Minnesota had 59, 60, 61 wins this year, especially considering there's going to be some teams in the West that start to crater, right? You've got like the San Antonios of the world that are not a good team against the spread. OKC is on pace for 56 wins, but they've got the fourth easiest schedule moving forward as well. We know what they can do. They're super balanced team in terms of how they can score. Jalen Williams can be the leading scorer on any given night. Chet Holmgren, I was talking to a friend about this today, may not have any offensive or defensive flaws. He can do everything with the basketball, including without it, right? Good rebounder, really good defender, can bring the ball up, can handle, he can slash, he can defend the perimeter. So I really like this team. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander obviously is one of our favorite players to watch, period, as this show goes along. Josh Giddey, sneakily, he's been in trade rumors, but he's been really good the last 5-6 games too. So you never know who's going to be able to take the burden for OKC. So I like them. And then thirdly, I like the Pacers at over 46.5 wins. Why? Well, one, you've lost Tyrese Halliburton to injury, so some of the losses that they've had, I think, are due to him not being in. And they haven't seen what this team is like with Pascal Siakam and whoever they may get before the trade deadline is over. So I think that the Pacers could win 48, 49 games.
I mean, I think the frustration level, I know from – I worked at DallasCowboys.com for 8 years, and, you feel it on that level. In the last 4 years, I've been with 105.3 The Fan. And now you really, really do get the fan base where, they talk about boycott this and do that and don't buy this and don't buy that. And then what happens? You turn around, they're the most watched games. They're the team that sells the most merchandise. We all talk a really, really big game, but when it really comes down to it, but I do believe we're starting to see where now the fan base is it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And I mean, it doesn't matter about the team, but it just, they're total buy-in. I think that's why McCarthy said what he did about buying in, because there's people around the world that are I can't buy in anymore. I can't put my emotions into this. I can't cheer for something that I know at the end of the day is going to come into a massive thud. And I can totally understand the fan base. The regular season is, it is what it is, and then you get in the playoffs and it looks like a completely different team playing football. So I can totally understand it, but I think we're starting to see the fan base is a little bit more detached than, say, the past years.